You're saying on things like nuclear, solar, wind, EVs, India should work with China as closely as possible, but that's a real problem here because in areas like Depsang, Demchok, along the line of actual control, we have not eyeball to eyeball, but we have a face-to-face confrontation between the Indian army and the PLA. How do you see the India-China equation play out? You also speak to people in mainland China. What do you think their reading of India is at the moment, and where do you see this equation go?
Look, right now the Chinese economy is not doing well, and China geopolitically in Asia is not succeeding. And that's not just an India problem. It's a Japan-South Korea problem in the northeast. It's a Vietnam-Philippine problem in the southeast. I mean, what are the countries that are getting more close to China in this part of the world? Tibet, right? I mean, excuse me, Nepal, not Tibet, to Nepal, Maldives, right? I mean, those are the elections that have actually gone in China's favor. Those are not big strategically important countries. So I think that China facing economic challenges and China facing geopolitical tensions in this region wants to avoid confrontation when it can. And that creates more of a window for Prime Minister Modi and whoever succeeds him to stabilize the relationship more.
That's not held up at India's end, that's largely held up at China's end, which at this moment doesn't seem willing, despite all the cross-border talks, to find a solution to the border confrontation. Why do you think that's the case? Because as Indians look at the situation, they wonder, how does China gain from prolonging this confrontation?
Yeah, well, again, there clearly has been some willingness to talk about pulling some troops back, some willingness to talk about increasing air travel between the two countries. I think that this is the time to lean into this. There are a lot of CEOs around the world that see that the Chinese charm offensive is because they're not in a great position. So you lean into it. The Australian government, you've seen head of state visit, now we're going to have premier visits. Why? Because Australia likes and trusts China? No. Australia's in AUKUS. Australia's in the Quad. But they're leaning into that because they see that China is likely to offer them more in this environment. Why is Biden spending the time in the Woodside Summit? Why has he asked Jake Sullivan to over-communicate with China? Why are they working on fentanyl? Why are they working on climate together? Why are they trying to keep Taiwan well communicated over and stable, and even coordinating with the Japanese and others? Because they see that China is not in the best position and can actually stabilize some long-term issues that otherwise would be problematic in a world that's very unstable. So again, if I were advising Modi at this point, I think this is a meaningful time, a meaningful opportunity to do the kinds of things that many others in the world are trying to do.
The biggest political risk globally at this moment is the election in the United States. What's your reading? All the data trackers that we're seeing here seem to suggest that Donald Trump has a slender edge over Joe Biden. Does it seem to you probabilistically that Trump's coming back?
Yeah, but my level of confidence is near zero. I mean, first of all, the elections are 5 months away. I could tell you what's going to happen in Russian elections in 5 months, right? The United States is still a democracy. I mean, it's not a very well-run democracy. It's not a very representative democracy, but it is still a democracy. So I don't know. These men are very old. We have no idea if they're both going to be alive in 5 months, right? I mean, that's still an open question. First applause line for the crowd here. Very interesting. The Indians are clearly rooting for something major to happen in the United States. I'll tell you, we don't know. We don't know. But what we do know is that this election matters a lot. And it matters a lot for the future of U.S. democracy. And it matters a lot for foreign policy in an environment where there are major wars going on, major tensions going on. The future of the United States is far more uncertain on the back of this election than at any point in our lifetimes.
Is that because your heart is speaking over your mind? Because if you look dispassionately just at the polling data and the average poll of polls of all data, statistically it seems Donald Trump has the edge, which would suggest that he should win.
Yeah, 60-40. Yeah. But it's 5 months away. I would say right now, 60. If the election were today, Trump probably wins. The election is in 5 months. That's an incredibly long time for an election. There's two really unpopular men that are running. No, it's not my heart at all. I think at the beginning of this year, I said I believed that Ukraine would be partitioned. I don't want Ukraine to be partitioned. My heart thinks that's wrong. It's immoral. It's horrible for the future of the world and rule of law and NATO and all of these things, but it's still going to happen.